Sorry, I'm going second. It's a tough act to follow. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from the chapbook, and then a couple of poems from the book that's coming out in spring. And then, if there's time, I'll read a few new poems from a new project. And I'm going to turn my timer on because I probably need to. I read a lot of poems about family, as many of us do. This first poem is called Any Dog Will Bite. Out my kitchen window, I see my son sitting still on the bank behind our house. His shoulders curl forward like a question mark as he props his elbows on his knees. The gun, which looks to me like any real gun, shoots small plastic pellets from an orange tip. He stares unblinking through the sights arranged on the barrel, the pink tip of his tongue exploring his upper lip. He squeezes the trigger, nailing the paper target 20 yards away. Over and over he reloads and fires, making tiny adjustments that improve his aim. I can almost feel the clicking of good gears in his 11-year-old head. Can almost smell the concentration in his boy's fingers. From here, I can only see the side of his face, shining with triumph and maybe something more. Any dog will bite is one of those things my father says from time to time. I know he means to teach me lessons until they sink in, like the teeth of that snapping mongrel he sees in his head, the dog a stand-in for everything he fears or thinks I should. You don't have to clap after every poem. I might need the time. So I read a lot of poems about guns. I grew up in a house with guns. My father was a police officer, actually, so that's something that I feel ambivalent about, and so it creeps into my poetic consciousness quite a bit. This poem is called Gun Safe. You said it would make me feel better, and I guess you're right again. It does. I am alone, and the house, ordinarily as quiet as old bones, comes alive. The dog barks at no one and nothing in particular as he stares into his reflection on the paneled windows along the sides of the front door. And the shadows that the hall tree stamps on the floor make me feel like there's someone standing there, even though I know there isn't. The code to the gun safe is in my head, burned there by years of knowing you and the digits of your birthday. The year, the month, the day your mother pushed you into this world of private fears and unspoken desires. My father wore a gun on his ankle wherever he went, even to church. I told you it was because of his job, because he never knew when he'd have to save a life or to take one. He taught me how to disengage the safety, how to steady the surprising weight of any gun in my hands while I breathe out slowly, pull the trigger, listen for the explosion, and feel the kick without blinking. The smell of gun oil as familiar to me as coffee. I told you I never wanted one in my home, that we should live without one because others said they couldn't. It's a dangerous gift, knowing just what others really want. Not the things they say they want, but what is hidden in their hearts, buried in the dark, deep pulse of blood, tucked into the heavy folds of muscle and complex valves where no one thinks to look. Sorry, I don't write any fun poems. poems. I've been thinking about adding some to my repertoire, but I'm not very good at it. Like many folks, I grew up in a home with an immigrant parent. My mother was an Asian immigrant. She moved here when she was an adult, and so she had very few language skills. And so I write a lot about that experience, and also her experience of working in a factory. And that's actually where the title of my full-length collection comes from. Line Brothers is the name of the factory where she worked. This poem is called White. Instead, I spotted our mother in a tiny chair in the back row, her blue-black head shining unnaturally. She was dressed in clothes she'd laid out carefully in her mind the day before, when her hands were moving along spools of every color, bright rainbow of threads flying through air as loud as a train. It cost her half a day's piecework to see her boy and girl outread them all. Her own English, bent and twisted still, even after all those years, carried whiffs of garlic and fish sauce. We hoped she would be silent. At home, where every night we waited for the rice to steam, her soft chatter lulled us to sleep. This is a poem that I wrote in a workshop. I had the great pleasure and honor to be in a workshop taught by Terence Hayes. And one of the things that Terence Hayes likes to do is to push on single words and to take a single word and see how much tension you can bring to it. And so that's how this poem came to be. It's a prose poem. Chink. In the 4th grade, Billy Morton calls me a chink, and at first I think it's because he sees my mother sitting quietly in the last row behind all the other mothers on back to school night, her black ink hair down to her waist, a curtain to everyone whenever she bends her head. But Billy Morton is always watching Kung Fu, and even though David Carradine doesn't look Chinese and isn't supposed to, people call him Chink. And Billy Morton wants to try it out on his own tongue, to push it forward with his breath, to feel how it tastes leaving his mouth. And I love words too, so I say, "You're a chink." And his face folds in on itself, and he starts to cry. And Sister Regina points her long witchbone at me, all blue in the face, and says, "Do you know what that means?" And I say, "No, but I know what it means. It means I can make you cry anytime I want." That's my idea of a funny poem. I don't know if you're familiar with Japanese wishing dolls. Do you know what those are? They're sort of strange little creatures. They're round and they're painted. And I have a Japanese wishing doll. And I hate it, actually. I don't know why I keep it. It's a creepy little thing. It's the perfect thing to write a poem about. So this is a poem from my new book. This is called Wishing Doll. He squatted on the bookshelf for years, hardly drawing dust on his crimson jacket, even after weeks of neglect. Faithlessly, I've dusted him. Felt the multitude of ridges hardened from the paper and flour he's formed from. Fingered the depression on his face that looks like an even bite from an artificial apple. His painted eyebrows form the hopeful wings of a crane, and chop hairs meant to look like tortoise shells are rushed and uneven, the shoddy work of a quick-handed man cranking out Daruma dolls at piecework rate. Looking around the corner of the room, catching the eye that seems to follow wherever I go, I swear he sometimes winks at me. Weighted at the bottom, my little man, will never fall over, will never lie still and wait for it all to be over. 7 times down and 8 times up is what the Japanese say, and I know this is a metaphor for my life, for everyone's life. The second eye, sharpied in by the man I once loved, makes me think I should set my own goals, should pack my bags and head to the other side of the world where I can burn him up and start again. That's actually what you do with wishing dolls. You burn them up, return them. Like so many folks, I think a lot about the violence that we hear about, and I write about that. And so I wrote this poem not long ago, but it was after the Sandy Hook massacre, and it was at a time when I was thinking a good deal about Nancy Lanza, about the mother of the person who committed so much violence. And you know, I heard someone, I think it was Mike, yesterday say that I think he read a poem about a dream that he'd had, and that never happens for me. I don't know about you, but I never dream poems except for once, and this is my dream poem. This poem is called Mother. Last night I dreamed you were